In this video, we're looking at UFC Vegas 101. We're going to go from the top down, so make sure you watch until the end. And as always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. The UFC kicks off the 2025 season with a rematch everyone was asking for. Oscar, I'm going to keep following the script, but I don't think everyone was asking for that. Mackenzie Dern's looking to get one back over Amanda Ribas, who really put it on her earlier in her UFC career, and that was back when Mackenzie Dern struggled to consistently get fighters to the mat. Her striking didn't look that great. Fast forward over 5 years later, he still kind of struggles to get fighters to the mat consistently, and the striking still doesn't look that great. And that's a problem, especially against a fighter like Ribas, who's never been submitted, can deny takedown attempts, is going to throw more strikes on average, and who's competed against better fighters recently. We saw what Amanda Ribas looked like in that Rose Namajunas fight. She lost that fight, but it was 5 rounds. She gave a good account of herself over the 5, and she actually gave her best effort in the 5th round. Shows that the cardio's on point. She's not going to give up on herself. You love to see that kind of effort. So I can see why Ribas is favored here. All signs point to her being able to lead the dance. If she's on the mat, even in a bad position, she should be able to stay safe. At striking range, there's a good chance she lights Mackenzie Dern up. Where it gets a little tricky is I would say Dern has more power in her hands. She tends to sit down on her punches more than Ribas does, and Ribas has been a piñata most of the time. She's been dropped before, and to go a step further, the only time she's knocked down an opponent in the UFC was a wheel kick in the 3rd round against a very gassed Luana Pinheiro. So coming up with a prediction for this fight is a bit trickier than the line would suggest. I mean, my knee-jerk reaction was Ribas probably wins this one, but on one hand, you got Ribas, who is probably better, but most of the time she's winning when she has a grappling advantage or her opponents gas out. I don't see Mackenzie Dern gassing out, and I don't think she takes her down in this fight. So since the line feels wide, I think it makes sense to go with the underdog here. Mackenzie Dern should land the harder punches, and the grappling is a wash. We had another profitable year on KunithMMA.com, and our best weeks that put us over came from spots just like these, where the lines were too wide. Mackenzie Dern at the time of recording this sits at plus 170. That makes her the biggest underdog she's ever been in her career. And this is the same woman who fought Amanda Lemos, Jessica Andrade, Angela Hill, Yan Xiaonan. We didn't get odds like this in those fights, and this fight looks like it should be a coin flip. So give me the dog here to start the year. Give me Mackenzie Dern to win this fight. I think she does it on the scorecards. Amanda Ribas is as tough as they come, probably not getting submitted here, but give me Mackenzie Dern to win by decision. Next, we have a fun one at welterweight. Santiago Ponzinibbio fighting Carlston Harris. Both guys looking to get back in the win column after suffering some tough L's last time out. For Harris, gets knocked out in about 90 seconds by Chaos Williams. And for Santiago Ponzinibbio, he lost a split decision to Muslim Salikov, who many would consider it to be a bad decision, myself included. And let me know in the comments which is worse, getting knocked out early or losing a decision that you probably should have won. What's a tougher pill to swallow? Santiago Ponzinibbio tends to be in close fights. In his last 5, 3 of them have been split decisions, lost all of them. One of them, he was knocked out in the 3rd round by Kevin Holland, and the other one, he got his only win in the first 5. That was over Alex Morono, knocked him out. That's a great win. He also got knocked down in that fight though, so it's a very close fight up until the end. His striking differential on paper, slightly positive. It's very close, which makes sense because in his fights he looks like him and his opponents are kind of taking turns. Okay, I throw a few, then you throw a few. And even against Muslim Salikov last time out, you look at the significant strike numbers, in the end they were 41-46. Super close. And on the other side, Carlston Harris's fights typically don't look like that. He's lost twice in the UFC. That knockout loss to Chaos Williams, no shame in that. It's going to happen to a lot of people. Knockout loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov, who might be the champion by the end of this year. Outside of that, came from behind to beat Jeremiah Wells, choked him in the 3rd when he was down 2-0 on the scorecards going into that round. Mixed it up over 3 rounds to beat Jared Gordon. He knocked out the PFL's best fighter currently in Impa Kasanganay, and he submitted Christian Aguilera in the 1st round of his UFC debut. So they're getting it done in different ways. Ponzinibbio's got the knockdown, drag out kind of war, while Harris is just an assassin. He goes in there, gets his paycheck real quick, gets out. I like Harris largely for that reason. I think he has the power to hurt Ponzinibbio, probably knock him out at some point, and he has the grappling to make things uncomfortable, even for a guy as seasoned as Santiago. And if Ponzinibbio was a few years younger, hadn't turned in these recent performances, I'd like him, but at 38 years old, clearly reaching the end of his fighting career, I think Harris takes this one and probably closes closes the show in the first or second round. Give me Carlston Harris to win inside the distance. And with the betting line being as close as it is in that fight, Carlston Harris probably finds himself on the official betting article on KunithMMA.com. That will be linked in the description and in a pinned comment. This is what the homepage looks like if you've never seen it. Right at the top here is where you can find the plan that works best for you. There's also the community tab, the blog, tools and data, optimizer. Under the community tab is members if you want to connect with other people. There's a DM function on the site. A lot of good things you could do over there. A lot of cool people on the site. Added these buttons just to give you a little idea of what's in each section, just so you can see that if you've never seen the site before. And if you click over here, this brings you right to Underdog Fantasy, where you can get your deposit match. I think it's up to $1,000 now. It's quite a bit. That'll also be linked in the description and in a pinned comment, or you can come right here and click this image, or right where it says Underdog Fantasy. And I think starting in February, I'm going to have a place for you to be able to submit your information again. I took it out for now just for simplicity's sake, but I'm going to put another spot there so you can put your email in, and that way you can start getting the prop of the week email that we're going to be trotting out. And I'm going to put my favorite underdog plays in there as well. That's some of the plans for 2025 among other things. But enough of that, back to the breakdown. Next, we're looking at Abdul Razak Alhassan. He's fighting Cesar Almeida this week. If you guys been watching me for a while, you know I'm out on Cesar Almeida, like entirely. Not overly impressed with the UFC run. Dylan Budka on short notice was not very good, gassed out after 5 minutes. Roman Kopylov pieced him up as expected, but not only was Almeida favored in that fight, but the judges tried their best. They tried to rob my boy Kopylov in a split decision in a fight where Almeida lost every round.
Kidding me? Come on, man.
And last time out, he committed foul after foul with impunity and still ended up going the distance with Ihor Potieria, who is also on this card. Ihor Potieria was finished in every other UFC loss except the fight with Cesar Almeida. Not impressed. So you tell me why this guy is the cat's pajamas. Is it because he went 1-2 in kickboxing years ago against Alex Pereira? I don't like it. In this fight, he's heavily favored. He should be the cleaner striker, but Abdul Razak Alhassan does not get knocked out often. Abdul Razak Alhassan can lean on his judo background to get this fight to the mat and strike for strike. Alhassan's landing with a lot more power than this guy. So this is another situation where I feel like the line is a little bit too wide for a guy that I'm not totally sold on. You might be, and if you are, that's fine. But like Kevin O'Leary on every deal where he doesn't get to steal half of the company for half of the price, I'm out. I like Abdul Razak Alhassan in this fight. I think he does what he does best. Give me Abdul Razak Alhassan to win this fight, spring the upset by knockout. And real quick, if you don't mind, I heard it was good luck, so I'm just passing this message along. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. It's good luck. I'm not going to tell you where I heard it from, but it's good luck, and if you want to do that now, yeah. Next, we have a banger of a fight. Probably fight of the night between Chris Curtis and Roman Kopylov. How many takedowns are we going to see in this fight? Zilch. We're getting 15 minutes of kickboxing in 4-ounce gloves, and if you know me, I mentioned it a little before, Roman Kopylov is my guy. Line seems a bit wide for him, and that's fair, but it's also scary. Scary to confidently back anybody who would be this big of a favorite against the action man Chris Curtis, but I think it's justified, because what we love about Chris Curtis is he's going to bang. Curtis loves to move forward. You don't see him using a whole lot of lateral footwork to try to evade strikes. No. He's in the pocket like Peyton Manning, and his striking defense really good. He knows how to roll with strikes as well as anybody in the UFC, and he's got those big ol' arms and those big ol' shoulders. They work like Gar's sand for him. And he hides behind this nice guard and lands counters in between. And I can totally see a situation where Roman Kopylov is just letting him go and he ends up getting caught with a counter hook that drops him. Very likely outcome, but I think the most likely outcome is a bit different. I think Roman Kopylov wins this fight and does it with his volume. And if you hear me say that and your first thought is Kunith, Chris Curtis has landed a lot more strikes on average than Roman Kopylov. I want you to know I respect you. You're paying attention. You're a thoughtful, cerebral young lad or ladette, and I like that. And that is true on paper. Chris Curtis is landing a lot more strikes, but I think Kopylov ends up winning the volume game in this fight, because out of that southpaw stance, I can see Kopylov peppering that Curtis guard and then ripping kicks to the body when it opens up. And we've seen him do that time and time again, and he mixes it up as well as anybody with strikes low, middle, high, and it keeps guys guessing because he is willing to change his levels with his strikes so often that he overloads and overwhelms guys. Now, that's going to be hard to do against somebody as defensively sound and has great eyes like Chris Curtis. But not many people have had an answer for that kind of variety, and it's not like Johnny Walker variety where you never know what he's going to do, right? Johnny Walker's going to throw rolling thunder into a jumping uppercut. Roman Kopylov's not doing all that, but he is going to throw a lot of kicks and a lot of punches at every level, and I think he might end up freezing Chris Curtis in this one, especially if He mixes in a takedown attempt or two, starts using his lateral footwork as well. We saw Chris Curtis, you'll never forget it, that fight against Jack Hermansson where Jack was just in his head. Hermansson stayed on his bike, peppered him, got out of the way, stick and move, stick and move. Chris Curtis was getting frustrated because it was like he was fighting a ghost in there. And I could see Roman Kopylov kind of doing the same thing. And again, Curtis is live, and I recognize that, but I think that Roman Kopylov has more tools to work with. So give me the younger guy, the favorite. Give me my guy, Roman Kopylov, to win this fight by decision. Next, we're looking at a fight between Austin Bashi. He's fighting Christian Rodriguez. Austin Bashi making his debut. And if you don't know, dude, this guy's the truth. Everything he does is 2x speed, super fast. He does a great job of throwing more than one strike at a time. Little cross hook, 1-2, quick. And you'll notice when you're watching these fights, he's getting big reactions when he's landing, so you know that the power is there. But where he does his best work is when he's able to work on his wrestling. No hesitation shooting for takedowns, fully commits to them, jumps the back as fast as anybody you've seen coming into the UFC. And what really jumps off the page is when he does get a takedown stuffed, he just sticks with it. Keeps cutting angles, keeps getting his opponents off balance, and he's got the cardio to do it over and over and over again. Dude's a problem, but at only 23 years old, he hasn't really faced the highest level of competition. Now, to be fair, he's looked the way you want a guy like this to look, against guys who aren't great, aren't UFC caliber. He's dominating them. And as you can see on the screen, he's actually got the same amount of pro fights as Christian Rodriguez, but they've taken very different paths to 13 professional fights. Half of C-Rod's career has been against UFC caliber talent, and history tells us if you're an undefeated fighter and the UFC gives you the contract and says Christian Rodriguez on there, just know your O's gotta go. Raul Rosas Jr., Cameron Simon, Isaac Dalgarian, they all walked into the cage undefeated and left differently.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? I love it.
It's a prophecy. Okay, it's C-Rod's purpose to provide humility to the unbroken. No, but on a serious note, I think that's what ends up happening here. I think Christian Rodriguez just has a way of sticking around in these fights. He's probably going to end up getting taken down, probably going to get caught with a few punches, probably going to spend a lot of time in a bad position, probably more time than if you're betting him, you want him to be in this bad position. He might end up giving up his back in this fight, but one thing Christian Rodriguez doesn't do is he doesn't panic. He tends to stay pretty calm in these bad situations, working through the steps needed to get out of these spots, and he resets. And Austin Bashi is going to face more resistance than he's ever met in MMA. Even the guy he fought in Contender Series, the guy was not very good. Now he's fighting a true UFC athlete, a UFC veteran at this point, and a successful one. And it's not as if Christian Rodriguez is some guy who's been around for a long time, maybe beyond his prime. This guy is still inching toward his fighting prime and his physical prime as well. So if he comes into this, good weight cut, looks like the diet's on point, I think he's going to end up putting it on him. And I don't really blame him at all for getting guillotined by Juicy J. That guy is fluent in everything frontal choke, guillotine, Darce, anaconda. Julian Erosa's that guy, so I don't fault him for that. And sometimes fighters get caught. It happens. It's life. I watched Devontae Smith drop a clutch slant over the middle that would have sealed the game. I would put my life on Devontae Smith catching a slant over the middle, but he dropped it, and you know what? That's life. It happens. So he gets caught by Julian Erosa. That doesn't outdo what was done before. I don't think anything less of him. I think that he's going to come in here and provide a learning experience for the young man, take another O. I like my chances with the fighter who's got better experience, might be the better fighter, big underdog pricing as well. And he's got a history of playing spoiler in these spots. So give me Christian Rodriguez to win this fight. I think he wins by decision. Next, we got Punahele Soriano. He's fighting Uros Medic this week. Pretty impressive wins for both of these guys last time out. For Medic, landed a perfect uppercut that knocked Tim Means out cold. And he can do that to a lot of guys. He's very crisp, very technical. So that means when he's landing, he tends to put guys out because it's landing so cleanly. Now on the other side, Punahele Soriano needed a dub worse than anyone last time out and just ran through Miguel Baeza. I'm surprised that fight wasn't stopped multiple times. Or rather, there were multiple instances where the fight could have been stopped. You can't stop a fight more than once. You're not like Keith Peterson or something. But the Miguel Baeza fight is keeping this line in check. And let me tell you something.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Wait.
Uros Medic is playable up to -500. He's a lock this week. I said it. He's too sharp, hits too hard for Puna, who's been hurt with strikes before. I feel like Puna's the better athlete, maybe. And he is a hard guy to stop, but I think technically speaking, he's completely outgunned here. I think Uros Medic has the perfect dance partner to look fantastic this week. Uros Medic wins this fight by knockout. Next, we're looking at a flyweight fight between Jose Johnson and Felipe Bunes. The biggest flyweight on the block is Jose Johnson, and that's a slender dude. He's basically Oscar Proud. The 6-foot tall Jose Johnson's looking to get off on the right right foot in 2025, and I think that he will. Felipe Bunes, unfortunately for him, giving up a lot of size, giving up some youth. He has 1 win in the last 2 years. In his debut, he had a strong first round against Joshua Van, and then Van closed him out in the second. Now, Bunes is going to be looking for takedowns in this fight. Probably ends up getting them because everybody wants to take Jose Johnson down, and everybody does take Jose Johnson down. And if you're a flyweight, why wouldn't you try to take him down? He's huge. You don't want to stand at kicking range or at punching range with this guy because it's just not going to work. So you need him on the mat where you guys are the same size. And that's why everybody sells out to get these takedowns. And a lot of people are successful in doing it. I don't think Bunes is going to be any different. I think he gets the takedowns here. So on your pick-em apps like Underdog Fantasy, you're probably going to want to take the over on Felipe Bunes takedowns. And I'm seeing it on the screen right now. His record is not 13. And Oscar, you have few jobs. Like, I do the hard stuff, but I guess I gotta do everything around here. Goodness me. But despite getting a lot of takedowns, I think Jose Johnson ends up winning this fight. His recent losses are coming against really strong grapplers that are in their prime, but he looks to be improving himself. I don't think that Felipe Bunes is going to come out here and put on a wrestling clinic for all 3 rounds. I think he might get 3 takedowns or something in the first round and a half and then get a bit tired, and that's when we see Jose Johnson start reversing position, threatening takedowns of his own, getting back up to his feet, and then winning the striking exchanges. So give me the bigger man in this one. Give me the younger man. Give me the favorite. Give me Jose Johnson to win this fight inside the distance. I think he closes him out late. Next, we have a fight between Marco Tulio. He's fighting Ihor Potieria this week. Potieria fight week, so that means the pick is Marco Tulio inside the distance. Let's move on. Tricky one at 155. Thiago Moises fighting Trey Ogden. I am a Trey Ogden whisperer, as you guys know if you've watched the channel for a while, so I'm going to be right on this one when I tell you who's going to win. I like the level of competition and the athletic ability coming from Thiago Moises. I like the fight IQ and the preparation coming from Trey Ogden, which is to be expected from somebody who is a coach. Side by side, I'd say the recent wins for Trey Ogden are a lot more impressive than what we've seen from Moises. For Moises, the performances have been all over the place. Against Benoit Saint-Denis, that loss is starting to age pretty poorly. He runs through a short notice debutante green Mitch Ramirez. He does a good job against the decent but not great Melk Costa, perennial lower level guy in the division, Christos Yagos. He wins against him, but lately when he comes across solid guys who are experienced and fight with a good game plan, he comes up short, and he's favored in this fight, and I think it's a mistake. I think Trey Ogden is in a great position this week. Moises can be taken down. Ogden's been sticking to that style in his last 3 fights, and he does a very, very good job of staying super heavy and super tight in top position. He gets to guys and he's like glue. He doesn't give them a whole lot of space to work with. Strong downward pressure as well. So even if you're just stuck in bottom and not much is happening, it's still very tiring when you're under a guy like Trey Ogden who's got that much positional awareness. And his striking, it's serviceable, right? It's more of a means to an end to close the distance so that he can get the fight to the ground to work that ground game. But even then, on the feet, he's not making a ton of mistakes. And I think for a guy whose game is almost 90% on the ground, that 10% is very important. If you're throwing wild punches, you're leaving yourself open, you're making a lot of errors, then you're going to get caught, especially by a guy who's as experienced and as explosive as Thiago Moises. But Trey Ogden's not the kind of guy to put himself in a really bad position. I think he's technically sound enough and smart enough to fight the way he needs to get his hand raised this week. And Moises may surprise him in the first if he's the one that's grappling, but Trey Ogden hasn't been taken down in the UFC yet, so I'll take the more consistent fighter. I'll take the underdog. I'll take Trey Ogden to win this fight by decision. Next, we're looking at a fight between Preston Parsons, don't call him by his initials. He's fighting the love child of Corey Anderson and Aljamain Sterling, Jacobe Smith, who's taken this fight on short notice. This was not Jacobe Smith all week. I actually found this out right before I started recording. Now, I don't know too much about Jacobe Smith, but in the little bit of time I had to do my research, I'm feeling pretty good that this guy's going to go out there and knock Preston Parsons out, because Preston Parsons is very tough, decent wrestler, decent cardio. Seems like one of those guys who, if he fought on the regional scene, he would tear everybody up, but in the UFC, he's just going to get mixed results time and time again. When he fought Oban Elliott, that was real eye-opening because he was able to get in deep on takedowns several times in that fight, and he just couldn't finish the takedowns, and the takedowns stopped working, so what did he do? He just tried to get more takedowns. There's no backup plan for Preston Parsons, and I think that athletically he's outgunned here. I think Jacobe Smith's going to land a lot harder. I think he's going to hurt him several times in this fight. I think he probably knocks him out sometime in the second round. Give me the debutant to make good on his debut. Give me Jacobe Smith on short notice by knockout. Next, we have another debutante making the walk this week, Nicolle Cagliari. She's fighting Ernest Kareckaite. Cagliari picked up a first round finish on Contender Series, a submission win just a few months ago. Quick turnaround for red flag. I don't know who you think you are taking this quick turnaround. Are you out of your mind? Making your debut on possibly less than a full camp. Are you crazy? And she's fighting Ernest Kareckaite, who dropped her debut to Diani Barbosa, and she looked like she was in control of that fight after the first round. Judges didn't see it that way. But what she's going to give you is a lot of volume. Huge for the division at 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. She's going to be towering over most of her opponents, and it's going to be no different this week. I think she puts it on the newcomer in this fight. The range that she can fight at is going to be too much to handle. I think the output to go along with it is going to help her maintain that range, and if she does get in trouble, finds herself in bottom position, it's not the end of the fight. It's not going to be a fight-ending amount of trouble. She's just going to get back to her feet. Look at the difference there. 6 inches in height, 9 inches in reach. Obviously, the Brazilian's going to be better on the mat, but I don't think that's going to matter all that much. I think the physical differences and the striking advantage coming from Kareckaite is going to be all that matters this week. So give me Ernesto to win this fight. I think she wins by decision. Another debutante this week, we've got Bruno Lopez, who looks like his son plays catcher for a travel baseball team, against Magomed Gaziazulov. Common opponent of these two, Bredison Ribeiro. Bredison Ribeiro knocked him out in the first round. And by him, I mean Bruno Lopez. If you're going to write the script, at least, you know. And Ribeiro hasn't knocked anybody out since. So do I think that Bruno Lopez is chinny? Do I think his chin is dust? Do I think Ribeiro stinks and this guy lost to Ribeiro, so he must stink? Magomed Gaziazulov beat Ribeiro, so the choice is obvious, isn't it? It's not, right? It's MMA. Things happen. Guys get caught. We talked about that. Bruno Lopez hasn't lost a fight outside of that one. Not before, not since. Magomed Gaziazulov's never lost a fight. And he does his best work when he's able to get takedowns, but I don't think that he's all that good. I think that somebody's going to expose him very soon, and it could be Lopez. Because yes, he beat Bredison Ribeiro narrowly, beats him on the scorecards. He beat Jose Medina, who's tough and nothing more. Very bad takedown defense on that Jose Medina fella. And Gaziazulov's gone the distance in his last 3 fights. Lopez is the better finisher. He's probably going to get the better of the striking exchanges, heavier handed for sure. The worry is that if he lets this guy, who's a wrestler, get out in front, get takedowns early, start to lead the dance, finish the first round in top position, that's where I think Lopez is finished. I think he'll start to fade before Gaziazulov does. But if that doesn't happen and Lopez starts the fight on the gas pedal, very aggressive from the beginning, he's a more dangerous fighter, and I think that can pay off for him, especially if he's throwing knees and uppercuts against the guy who's going to be shooting for takedowns. So I like the price. I like the finishing upside. Give me Bruno Lopez to win this fight by knockout. Next, we got a fight between Victoria Dudakova. She's fighting Fatima Klein this week. Fatima Klein, massive favorite, and it shows the respect that people have for her because she lost her last fight against Jasmine Jasdavicius, granted up a weight class against a big body, and she's a grappler, so it's not going to work out. But grappling is what ended up losing Victoria Dudakova her last fight, and watching it, I thought that she won, and she didn't get out grappled. That's not why her grappling lost her the fight. Her grappling lost her the fight is because she gassed out chasing these takedown attempts while Sam Hughes was making her pay for it over and over again. And at these odds, I don't want to be the guy to go the other way. I think that Klein is going to get it done. She should win, or we don't know what we're looking at. Don't hold the Jasdavicius loss against her at all. I think that she ends up getting it done here. Give me Fatima Klein to win this fight by submission. And this was another fight that changed right before I was recording it. The Tajik Eagle, Baby Habib. Now he's fighting Joe Solecki. He was not fighting Joe Solecki before. He was actually supposed to be fighting Yanal Ashmos here, and I think that Ashmos was a tougher fight for him than Solecki is, because Solecki very good on the mat, but I think he's one of those guys who's better at jiu-jitsu than he is at MMA. He's been doing jiu-jitsu forever, right? It's ingrained in his mind. He's very good at it, but it doesn't translate that well to the sport of MMA. For a guy that's done it for this long, you would expect more submission wins recently. I think he has 1 submission win in the last almost 5 years. And good luck against a wrestler with this kind of style and this kind of mindset like Nurulo Aliev is bringing to the table. 9-0, young guy, looking to run through whoever they put in front of him, and now Solecki stepping in on short notice. I don't like it. And I see Solecki spending a lot of time on his back, trying to work sweeps, trying to get reversals, maybe looking for a triangle, trying to work his guard, maybe looking for a guillotine, and I just don't think it's going to work on a guy like this. Some moves are hard to hit in MMA. A guillotine might seem simple, might seem easy to hit in MMA, but against wrestlers like this, They're very good at getting off on the right angle, or at least keeping that space by looking up, methodically getting out of the position, popping their head out, and then going to work because you jump that guillotine, it doesn't work, now you're in a bad spot. Or with the triangle chokes, right? You're either 2 hands in or 2 hands out most of the time, right? When you're practicing, that's how it is. But how often do we watch MMA fights where a guy just sits up and he's out of the triangle, even with just one arm in? It happens all the time, so I'm not really worried about it. And then as far as sweeps go, hell no, he's not getting swept this week. So Narulo Aliev, I think he gets it done this week. Selecki's a tough guy. He's going to have moments where he might threaten some things, and then we're going to have to wait for Narulo Aliev to get out of these bad positions. So I think that's going to burn time on the clock. So I believe that Aliev is going to end up winning this fight on the scorecards. Give me Narulo Aliev to win this fight by decision. Real quick, if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and I'll see you later in the week for final picks. Let's go.